Yum, yum!
Greg here from Pixel Fondue. This is my first plasticity video for the channel. We have a bunch of plasticity videos. Those are done by William Vaughn, who does a bunch of the quick tips and exercise videos. This is more of an intro to plasticity. I'll keep it pretty short. We're going to make a little sci-fi power cell or something like that. And I just want to sort of show the basic tools to those of you who are new to this sort of modeling, coming from a background like Modo or Blender or Cinema 4D or Maya or something where you deal with polygons or subdivision services. It's a little bit different, but I think you're going to be shocked at how similar it is. And it's very easy to get into, and it's not something to be intimidated by. And I really do think plasticity has a really bright future as a content creation app for our industry. So I'm just going to jump right into it. We have a Pixel Fondue Discord, which I'll put the link below. I also put the link for the plasticity demo below. I think you can get a trial for this as well if you want to try it out. And we're going to do like a kit bash contest on the Discord for people who are just sort of getting into this. So let's take a look at plasticity and let's sort of talk about really quickly the differences between solids and surfaces and polygons. So one way to think about it is a polygon modeler like Modo or Blender. Polygons, you can almost think about it like pixels in Photoshop. You can move them around individually or as in groups or chunks and draw or paint them on there with various tools. But they're not really defined by a mathematical algorithm. Like a curve of pixels isn't really a curve. It's just a bunch of stair-step pixels together, just like a curve of polygons is a bunch of individual polygons and that sort of jagginess. And the more polygons you have, the more pixels you have, the smoother it is. For a subdivision or for a surfaces modeler or a solids modeler, which plasticity is, it's coming from the CAD world. So these objects are made for manufacturing, right? The creations you would typically make in a CAD program are made to be manufactured into real world objects. The surface types are really mathematical formulas more akin to Illustrator, where a curve or a circle or a shape is defined by a mathematical formula rather than a collection of a bunch of pixels or a bunch of polygons, right? So there's some advantages and disadvantages to using surfaces and solids instead of polygons. There's a little less flexibility in terms of being able to move things and bend things and mush them around. Polygons are great for that, but you gain things like resolution independence and some precision and things like that. So we're going to bump into that stuff as we go here. But first, let's just jump into navigation and selection and get that out of the way, since that's mostly what you do all day when you're in a modeling program is you're navigating and selecting things. So up here in preferences, you will see that there's multiple navigation presets. Plasticity's default is sort of CAD-like. I think SolidWorks is kind of like this. We use middle mouse to orbit and right mouse to pan around. Blender is a little bit off that, is sort of CAD-ish like that as well. Also notice that plasticity you see up here is Z up versus Y up, which we're used to in Modo and Maya and most DCC programs. I'll just call Cinema 4D, Maya, Modo, Blender, DCC programs, although I think Blender might be Z up for some. Blender's kind of weird. But I'm just going to select the Maya navigation. This is the closest to Modo in my view. We got 3D Studio Max and Rhino and some others up here as well. Maybe we can get a Modo navigation up here at some point. But I'm just going to pick Maya, and just so you know, that is Alt left mouse to orbit, just like Modo, Alt right mouse to zoom in and out, and Alt middle mouse to pan. So orbit, zoom, pan, get used to it, mess around with it for a minute because you're going to be doing a lot of it. Now let's talk a little bit about geometry types and selection. So you see over here, we've got a solid, and this default cube that our scene comes with is a solid. Let me just jump back one step. Before I do that, there's this little button up here in the top left corner. You see this little grid here where it says perspective/orthographic. Now, if you're coming from a DCC, you think this cube looks a little weird, and it is sort of is an orthographic view, sort of an orthographic perspective, I guess. But it looks weird to people who spend all their time in Modo or Maya or whatever. And you just click this little button to snap it into perspective mode, and that looks more like we're used to dealing with. Now, I don't know why exactly that the CAD designers like this. Maybe it's something to do with dimensions or seeing dimensions more clearly or something like that. I don't know, but I prefer perspective. This just feels like at home to me, so I always click that off. Okay, so let's talk about geometry types. We've got solids, and this is our 3D object. It's a solid. Think of it as sort of a watertight mesh item in Modo, right? So no holes or cracks or anything, just watertight mesh item. And it has to be watertight to be called a solid. And then we can have curves. So I'm just going to select the line tool over here. And I'm just going to go to the top and just drag sort of a zigzaggy click and click, click. And then when you're done, just hit enter like that, or you can right mouse click to confirm you're done. You'll notice that the enter or right mouse click to confirm your operation is really prevalent in CAD programs. And Plasticity is no different. I'm not sure if that's something we should necessarily keep or not. I think it works the workflow, but it is a little weird to like move something and then just press enter to have to like commit it. But you'll get used to it. So now we've got a curve and some points, and let's do one more. Let's grab the circle over here and go to the top, click and drag out a radius and let go and hit enter. And you'll notice this closed curve has sort of a light blue filling, right? And so there's three types of geometry items, basically. You've got curves, which is our polyline here and our circle here, and it always categorizes them for you, and our solid here. Now, if we want to have the third type, which is a 2D type, we're just going to turn this circle into a sheet. And I'm going to go down here and click this button that says patch holes along edges or create patch from curves. Click that, and then hit OK, and you'll notice that we now have a sheet. A sheet is like a two-dimensional surface, right? A two-dimensional mathematical representation of a surface. They're used a lot in the surface modeling aspects of plasticity. We're not going to get into it a ton here, but you can always convert a closed curve into a sheet. In fact, it sort of does it for you when it has that sort of like a pre-selection of a sheet when you've got that white fill in. So now when we turned this into a sheet, it kept the circle curve there. It made a new sheet and kept the curve in case we wanted to use it for something else. But I'm just going to select the circle curve, press delete, and get rid of it. So now we have a sheet, we have a curve, and we have a solid. And up here on the upper left, we have our selection modes, right? So these also correspond, just really similar to Modo, with the number key. So 1 is vert, 2 is edges or curves, 3 is face, which is kind of like a polygon but different, and 4 is solids, which is kind of like an item in Modo, or just like a, again, that watertight surface, right? Watertight object. So let's go back to press 1. Oh, by the way, if you press 5, you can select all at once, right? They're all available for selection. So I can select, for instance, a solid and a curve by shift selecting at the same time, right? So if I go to 1, just press 1, now we're just on verts. I can select vertices on my curves here, but I cannot select vertices on a sheet, and I cannot select vertices on a solid. This is what I mean by being less flexible than a polygonal modeler. Like in a polygonal modeler, obviously you can just grab this vert on the cube there and move it around, do whatever you want with it. Not so with plasticity. You can only select verts on curves here. Now if I go to 2 and we were at the curves or edges, I can select a curve like this, or I can select an edge, okay, like that. And again, you click in the open space just like Modo, it deselects. Now, if you press Q, if you're used to pressing Q to dropping a tool or something, that activates the Boolean tool in Modo. Or in Plasticity, I would do that a lot when I first started using Plasticity, because Q is like dropping a tool in Modo, so you kind of hit Q subconsciously all the time. And Plasticity, you're just going to keep activating the Boolean tool. So just a warning, if you keep wondering why this Boolean keeps coming up, it's because you're pressing Q. You don't need to do that. Okay, and then let's go to face, press 3. I can select faces on a solid here, just like this, or I can select more than one at once. And you'll also notice that these little tool handles pop up when you select something. So when I go to 2, I select an edge, you automatically get this chamfer or fillet tool. Drag one way, it does a fillet, drag the other way, it does a chamfer. It's kind of like an edge bevel, right? Now, one of the things, Control Z to undo, that Plasticity does is it just automatically activates tools sometimes depending on what you grab. So if I grab an edge, it's going to do this chamfer or fillet tool automatically. And if I select a face, it's going to automatically give me the offset tool, right? If I select a face on a sheet, it's going to give me the offset tool as well, all right? If I can't select a face on this curve here, there's no faces to select. Lastly, I have number 4 up here, and this is bodies. Bodies are just sort of a generic term for surfaces or sheets or solids. So with 4 selected, I can click a solid or a surface, but not a curve. Can't get the curve. I can get the surface, the sheet, which is, I think calling it a surface is also synonymous. You can call it a surface as well, I think, or a solid. Now, if I press 5, I can select anything all at once. It's all fair game. So I just lasso select everything. It just grabs everything. I can, grab a solid and shift click and grab a curve, or I can select a sheet and I can shift click and grab some vertices like that. maybe grab a couple vertices there. Whoops, shift click the sheet. So just anything's fair game with all 4 of those on. So that's the selecting, right? So again, it seems a little weird because if I go to vertices, I cannot select vertices on a solid. That's something you have to kind of get used to. It's not like a polygon modeler. Now you can also do a convert selection in Plasticity similar to Modo. So I can select a face here. Let's just select a face, press 3 and select a face. And then I can press Control 2, just like in Modo we'd press Alt 2 to get the edges. So I can press Control 2, now I got the edges and I can fillet them if I want to, right? So Control Z to undo that. Now that doesn't work for everything. So if I select this curve here and then press Control 1, I don't get verts. It's really just to get the edges of a face. So I can, again, get this face here and Control 2 will give me the edges. It might actually work with a solid. If I click the entire solid and do Control 2, it gives me all the edges, right? So same thing with this sheet over here. I can select the sheet and Control 2 will give me the edges, right? And a fillet on the edges of a sheet just expands the sheet. Whereas if I press 3 and select the face, then it gives me offset, which moves it up and down. Okay, so let's just start making something and see what we can do. I'm going to just go up here and say new scene or new file, hit yes. We'll start with our default cube. Let's go ahead and click this orthographic button again. And then I'm also going to change the grid size. Right now the grid size is 1 meter. I think that's way too big for what we want to do. So let's go all the way down to 0.05 meters, right? Or what is that, 5 centimeters. So that looks better. We're going to make like a little sci-fi power cell battery component. And I'm going to click on I'm going to press 4 for my bodies. I'm going to click on my solid body here and I'm going to delete it. And I've got a fancy fresh new scene. So let's start making something. I'm just going to kind of push in here a little bit. So I'm fairly close and I'm going to select the cylinder over here. The cylinder tool, you'll see that most of the, if you just hover, there's like a nice tooltips with keyboard shortcuts. Lots of keyboard shortcuts in Plasticity. And so let's take a look at how those work. Let's select the cylinder and then just hover over the middle here. It'll snap to that center point with the axes and then just click and you can sort of drag along the X here. And you'll see dimensions. They're really small. I wish they're a little bit bigger because I can barely see them. But we can always change this before we commit. So let's just click and then go up a little bit and click. And then let's just navigate around and look at our cylinder here and take a moment. So all tools and creation items in Plasticity require you to commit to them, right? So you can commit by hitting right click. You can hit enter or you can just click OK. Prior to doing that, everything's live. So I can click these tool handles and I can drag on radius like this, or I can drag on height like this, or I could type in down here like maybe a 0.2 radius and a 0.5 height, something like this for our cylinder. Or I can use these keyboard shortcuts over here to do some things. Now you notice it has a slice, union, difference, intersect, these Boolean terms. That's because any primitive creation in Plasticity allows you to like just Boolean to existing materials. So if you have if I already have a solid here and I want to just drill into it with a cylinder, I can do that while creating a cylinder. I don't have to go and do a separate Boolean operation later. I just do it right from the bat. But we can also adjust the radius and height here. If I prefer to do that, I can just press F for radius and just move your mouse back and forth with your stylus, and you can adjust the radius. D is height. Again, it's just live F, D, right? And so, this is how Plasticity generally works. There's a bunch of tool-specific options here. Just click to commit it, just to temporarily get away from the dragging. And you're able to sort of manipulate what you're doing or control what you're doing or constrain what you're doing with these live tool-specific keyboard shortcuts while you're working in Plasticity. And you can always go over here and type in numeric entry or use tool handles. So that's how you do things in Plasticity. Tool handles, numeric entry, or keyboard-specific shortcuts or tool-specific keyboard shortcuts. So let's, again, 0.2, tab, 0.5, that's what we want. Hit OK, right-click, or hit enter. You have a cylinder. You have just made a solid cylinder in Plasticity. You are ready to roll. Okay, all right. Let's detail this guy up a little bit. Make it look like a sci-fi power cell. So press 2. We're now in sort of edge mode. I'm going to select this top edge here. And Plasticity likes to, if you select an edge, it automatically activates the fillet tool. If I go over here and go to faces and select a face, it automatically activates the face offset face tool. So Control Z, don't offset the face, keep it where it is. But then go to and do edge, select your edge. We automatically have the fillet tool active. If I don't want to do filleting, I can always escape out of it. That edge is still selected. But I really want to do filleting, so I'm just going to drag. If I drag down into negative numbers, I get a chamfer, so that sort of straight, chamfer. And if I drag up into positive numbers here, I get a fillet, which is that nice rounded edge here. So I'm just going to eyeball it, right? I'm just going to sort of navigate around and eyeball this thing into something like this. And then I'm going to right click to commit. And then I press 2 for edges and get this bottom edge here. And I could have done them both at once, but I wanted to show you a neat trick. I can drag this into a fillet as well, right? If I want to match that top one to the bottom one, I don't have to remember what the actual numeric parameter was. I just click on it and it'll snap to it. So now they're exactly the same, right? So again, I can just have like a really big one here, but if I want to match this one, I can just click on it and it matches, hit enter, done. And you can even do that with separate objects, match the radius of separate objects. And let's do that with a sphere really quick because it's kind of a cool little trick. So click your sphere over here, just go ahead and click it. And same thing with the cylinder, we're just gonna click on the little red axis here, it doesn't really matter where. Click and drag out the radius of the sphere, all right, just like that. And when it gets, whatever, about this size, just click again to let go. But we're gonna go over here and turn that to 0.2, which was the original radius of our cylinder. Hit OK. And then I'm gonna select, go to face mode, so press 3 or click this button, and select our face there. We automatically get the adjustment for the fillet. But what I wanna do is match this sphere radius and click that, because if I want a really rounded cone here, it's kind of hard to get that exact, see how it snaps out of it. But I can, because this sphere is the same radius as the cylinder, I can just click that sphere and I get that perfect conical like top to it now. So enter to complete. Let's just go over here to bodies and select our sphere. We don't need it anymore, so you can delete it. And yeah, we've got this sort of, looks like, I don't know, looks kind of like a mini grenade, I guess, from a grenade launcher. I don't know, Half-Life 2 grenade. So let's press 3, go to face mode, let's select the face, and we don't want to offset this face like this, all right? We just want to move it. So I'm going to press G for move. Again, this uses Blender style shortcuts instead of Miyamoto style shortcuts. So I've got the move tool there, and I can just, select the tool handles and it moves just like you'd expect it would. I can do the gestural stuff if I want to, so I can press Z and then just, wiggle my mouse or stylus up and down. Remember, it's Z up in Plasticity, or I can just use the tool handles. I just want to stretch it out a little bit, something like this. Again, we're making sort of a sci-fi power cell, so we're just going to elongate it like that. Hit OK, and yeah, we're getting there. All right, so let's look at it from the side view. You can do that in 2 ways. You can either click on the axes over here for Z, X, or Y, or if you want to get out of it, you just Alt drag and orbit, and it'll just like ZBrush, it'll just bring it back into perspective mode. This is something I think Moto really needs to be able to do, is to snap in and out of orthographic mode and perspective mode. You can also press 1 or 3 and on the numeric keypad to go to look down X or Y. If you do Control 1 or 3, it'll actually, if you look at the top where it says back, you can look at the negative axes. So we can do 3 left or Control 3, 3 right, Control 3 left, 1 front, Control 1 back. Right. So let's look at it from the right. All right. Let's look at it from the right. And then we're going to select this line right here. We're going to draw a line. So it's just we're just going to chop the top off. So just click to start your line, drag across. It's pretty sticky. You can move it up and down, but it'll stick to a straight line. Click again, and it just starts a new segment. So again, right click or enter, and you can commit that straight line. It's a little weird to get used to, but you don't drop the tool, you commit the tool, right? And now we've got a line, and if I just press Alt and look at this in perspective, it's just right there, it's just going right through the middle of it there. But I'm going to use this as a cutter. And so I can either go down here and you see this little icon where it says Cut Solid with Curve, C. You can click that icon, or I could just press C. So I've got my line selected right here, and you can also see it selected over here in the item list. Just press C. It's going to ask you to select the target bodies. I'm going to click our little bullet looking thing like that, and you'll see it just hacked off the top, right? If I hit OK to commit it, I now have 2 solids. I've got the one at the top where I can press 4 for my solids, or bodies and grab it, and then G for move and just move it away like that. Let's go to this mode. Let's look at it from perspective here. I think I lost my perspective mode here. And I can just move it away, or I can delete it by pressing delete. And now that's gone. I can select my curve. I don't need it anymore. So I'm going to delete that too. And now I've got this sort of hacked off top here. And so let's continue to modify this. Press 3 for faces. Select that top face. I don't want to do the offset face move. I'm going to do what's called an offset. Offset is different than offset face. I really wish offset was called inset because it makes more sense to me. But we're going to press O for offset. And you're going to see this little line appearing here. If you just drag a little bit and do it in small increments, because if you go the outward direction, it's going to give you that sort of red outline. And so we want to go, I want to drag to the right and go to the inward direction. Dragging to the left goes, or I don't know, at some point it's looking, you don't want to go out, you want to go in like this, right? So we're offsetting inwardly, maybe also called an inset, but we're just kind of pushing in, let's do like a polygon bevel inset, right? We're just going to push in a little bit like that, and then right click to commit. And then I'm going to select our middle guy here again, and I'm going to push down with offset face like that. Looks pretty good. I'll just right click commit that, and then, or press enter to commit. And then I'm going to press 2 for edges. I'm going to grab this guy here, and I'm going to do a chamfer this time. So I'm going to drag in the negative direction and get a sort of chamfer look like this. That sort of straight edge look like that. Looks pretty good. Enter. And then what should we do? Let's select our middle face again. Press 3 to select that middle face. I'm going to O offset one more time to bring it in a little bit. And then I'm going to enter, select it again, and I'll just use that tool handle for offset face to move it up. Well, this is kind of interesting. So if I want to match that top edge there, I can try to look at it and just sort of eyeball it and sort of match it up. That's maybe what you would do in something like Modo or Maya. But I'm going to use a feature called match face, which is awesome. So just hit OK. So this is just, we've offset it above. And then I'm going to click this little button here called match face. And then I'm going to select this face right here to match it. And it's just going to snap right to that same coordinate. So those are perfectly planar now. Hit OK. And yeah, all right, we'll just keep working on this a little bit. Let's just grab this center part one more time, and let's do a chamfer kind of like that. Enter. I think I'm going to something like that. It's a little phallic looking, but we can deal with it. Let's press 2 and get these two edges here, and I'm just going to, I think I'm going to, oh, maybe Control Z. Let's just do this top one. Let's just do another chamfer on that one, sort of a wide one. So we've got a couple, just, yeah, sort of a double chamfer in the middle there. Again, you can just enter to commit that. And yeah, okay, let's move on. So let's do we'll do a little more detailing up here in a second, but let's do some panel gap stuff on the sides first. Okay, so let's look at it from the side on X there. And then I'm going to press Shift H, and that's gonna hide everything. And I'm going to go over to the corner rectangle, and I'm going to, we'll click on Snap to Grid, and just maybe three grid units in. We'll just sort of make it like this. Again, enter to commit. Alt H will unhide our guy there, so it's a little bit too big. So I'm going to press S for scale and just use that planar handle to scale it down. And then use these handles to move it up a little bit. I could turn off Snap to Grid, and something like this. G for transform. And again, your transform tools, scale, rotate, move. You can do that with curves, and you don't have to commit between each one. You can sort of jump between them. So R for rotate, S for there's R for rotate, S for scale. and then G for move. And if you use Blender, you're probably like, of course, but if you use Moto, you're going to find yourself going to Moto and accidentally like pressing G for move, and it's going to annoy you. But you can always, you can customize all that stuff in Plasticity if you want to. Anyway, so this looks pretty good. So let's just keep that and then hit OK. And then I'm going to, again, I'm going to press Alt H or Shift H to hide all unused items. So it's going to hide our cylinder, but keep our rectangle here. And I'm going to go over here and I'm going to click on the center circle, click and hold, and then go over here to where it says 3-point arc and let go. And now we have the 3-point arc tool. So I'm going to, what we do here is you define a line and then an arc. So it'll just, with this enable snapping on, it's going to automatically snap to this point. So you click once, come over to this point, click again, and then just drag up to create your arc, right? So something like this. Click to enter. And then what I'm going to do now is just one for vert mode. I'm going to select these two verts at the bottom. G for move, move them up, hit OK. And we're going to mirror this, all right? So let's go to our 2 for our curves, select our curves, and then we're going to select the mirror tool, which is down here. It's also Alt-X. So I press Alt-X, you get this little axis here. Now, if it's all at the origin. So if I want it to be on Y, I would click the negative Y here, and it'll just put one way down here. But I don't want it way down here. I want it to be snapped up here. So let's undo that. And let's do the mirror tool again, Alt-X, or you can click the icon. You'll notice, again, over here in the lower left-hand side, we've got all our keyboard shortcuts that are tool-specific. And what we want is freestyle mode, F. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to press F, and you've got this little cursor here. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and drag across for my mirror plane. So I'm going to click on this. It sort of snaps to this, this vert here. I'm going to click and just drag straight across to define my plane. And there we go. Hit OK. And now we've got these right where I want them. Just going to click on this little button up here, this little icon to hide the grid. Just push in a little bit. And again, press T or select the scissors for your trim tool. And I'm just going to click on all of these interior lines, and it's just going to trim them away. And then hit OK when you're done. And what we have here now, if I'm still in curve mode, is I have a bunch of different curves, but they're not joined together. In fact, I can press 1 for verts, and you can see that there's verts all over the place. What we want is all these little curves, press 2, all these curves, I'm just shift selecting them, to be joined together. So I'm going to lasso select all the curves, and I'm going to press J for join. You can also, where's the J for, I think join is down here somewhere. If you want to know where the icon is, join curves is right here, or you just press J like that, and now we have one curve. So again, Control Z, you see I've got a bunch of curves, press J for join, one curve, one filled curve, okay? And then let's turn the grid back on. Let's just Alt left mouse to go back to perspective mode, and either click the eyeball or press Alt H to turn on our guy there. Okay, so there's our battery. I'm gonna press, with our curve, rectangular curve still selected, I'm gonna press G. I'm just gonna kind of drag it out so it's just sort of sitting on the edge here like this. And then commit that. And then we're going to do a radial array. So down here, you'll see this radial array button. Click that, kind of go to the top, like looking down on it. And it'll snap to the center for you. So just click there. And it starts off with 12. We don't want 12. We want just 4, like that. You can also, I think, shift mouse scroll wheel to adjust the number, right? So we just want 4, like this. And hit OK. So now we've got them sort of surrounding it. All right, so just click in your workspace to deselect the curves. Now we're going to imprint these curves onto the surface. By imprinting the curves onto the surface or onto the body, we're going to actually create new edges onto that solid. Now you can project curves, but that's slightly different. So if I project this curve onto this body, if I click down here onto project curve, I click this icon and I select my target body, it'll sort of shoot the curve onto the body like that. So I've got a new curve and it's stuck to the body. That's not really what I want. I don't want a new curve stuck to the body, so I'm going to Control Z that. I want to actually create edges on the body. It's like a drill. So I think I actually need to grab all these curves and just press scale and just make them a little bit smaller like that. And then I'm going to imprint them. So there's a keyboard shortcut, Shift-I, for imprint curves. There's no icon, I don't think, quite yet, at least not in 1.4. Let me just escape this. You can also find any command by pressing the ... button here for the command browser and just type in imprint. We want to do imprint curves on the body, so click that. Same as pressing Shift-I. And we've got the curve selected already. It's asking us for the body, so I'm going to select this. Actually, let me just escape out of this one more time. I'm going to do this one at a time because I think it has some problems if I try to do all four at once. So again, select one curve, Shift-I, imprint, select the body. Okay, now if you look at this, let me just hide our curves here. I have, and then go to edges, I have edges on my body, just like this, that are imprinted onto it. So I can go over here and just turn on another curve, and I'm going to select it, press 2 to select it, Shift-I for imprint, select my body, okay. I can hide this one, let's get this other curve here, Shift-I, imprinted on the body, okay, and I can hide this guy. And then for the last one here, whoops, not that one, not that one, this one. I'm just going to do it again. So press 2 to select the curve, and then Shift-I. We're going to imprint on this body, hit OK. I can hide that last curve. In fact, I can delete all these curves now. Now I've got a bunch of faces that I can select on my body, and I can pull them out with offset face or suck them in. I'm just going to pull them out just a little bit like this. All right. Okay. And with those faces still selected, I'm going to do Control-2 to convert those to the edges. And then I'm going to chamfer all these. Actually, I'm going to fillet all of them nice and rounded, kind of like that. Okay. So now I've got just some sort of detail on the side of my power cell, right? All right. Starting to look a little bit like a power cell, I guess. Let's look at the bottom here. I'm going to hide the grid again. And let's create a sphere, and it's going to snap to that center origin at the bottom. We'll just sort of do that automatically. So click and define a radius, and you can see that it's automatically doing a Boolean operation on it, right? A Boolean difference. And so if I, whoops, let me just. So let me just click, and now I'm not committing this yet, but you can see my keyboard shortcuts here. I can press Q for union, and I can union it, that's blue. W for difference, that's chopping a hole into it. Or even intersect, Shift E, so that's just gonna grab the intersection. Go back to Q here. Or we're gonna do B for new body. I'm gonna press B for new body because I wanna manipulate this a little bit. So I'm gonna press B for new body, and it's just gonna make a new sphere, hit OK. So we've got a new sphere here. And then I'm going to press S for scale, and whoops, I'm going to press S for scale and just sort of smoosh it down like this, like that, enter. And now I'm going to Boolean it on there. So with it selected, press Q, that's our Boolean tool. You can also select this icon down here. Let's select the other body, and it's the same thing. It automatically goes into a difference, but I press Q to do a union, W, difference, right, Shift D, intersect, but we want Q, union. And we're going to hit OK. And now we've got sort of a little rounded nubbin on the bottom there. Actually, you know what? I think I'm going to cut that. So let's look at it from the side. And then let's just do another straight line here like this. Enter to create it. C to cut. Select our body. It's going to chop it. Hit OK. Press 4 for bodies. Let's grab that bottom body, delete it. 2 for curves. Grab that bottom curve, delete it. I'm just going to Alt left mouse to navigate here a little bit. 2 for, actually press 3 for faces, and let's just push it down a little like that, and then Control-2 for the edges, and let's then do a little bit of a chamfer on there, just like that. Okay, that's good. So kind of like a battery, that looks all right. So let's do one more panel cut. I'm going to press 4, and I'm going to select the entire body. R for rotate. I'm going to rotate this guy like 45 degrees. And this is going to, if I look at it from the top, it's going to sort of align those flat edges with the axes there. All right, so let's look at it along Y, and I'm going to create a center circle. So just your circle right here, center circle. And I'm just going to sort of eyeball the size. I can never, I don't know how to snap to grid while looking through an item. So right now, we just hit escape to get out of that. So I hit snap to grid here, and I do my center circle, it'll snap like that. But if I'm hovering over an existing item, I don't get it. So I don't know, maybe somebody in the comments could tell me how to do that. So actually, I'll just do Shift H to let me start a circle here, like just sort of eyeball the size, and then Shift H to hide our solid there, and I'm just going to press enter to create the circle, press 2 for curves, G for move, and turn my snapping on and just snap that guy to the middle there, enter to commit, and then Alt H to bring my guy back on. How about that? Okay, there's got to be a way easier way to do that, but let's do an array. So I'm going to do my rectangular array with my circle curve selected and just drag down, and it'll just sort of, it'll just sort of stick to that Z-axis there. Let's click and enter. So that looks pretty good. With all 3 of these guys selected, I'm going to try to align it to the middle of this background power cell we're working on. And to do that, I'm going to just press G to sort of move it up a little bit and turn off. Now it's snapping to the grid. So, okay. Maybe I'm missing something here, but let's just move in the center a little bit. But I want to get it really centered. So there's a couple ways you could do it, but I want to show you how to use measurements. So if you press Control equals, you can add a measurement. You can also just go over here and type measurement, and you can see that it's Control equal. So measurement, and I'm gonna just sort of hover over, just sort of zoom in a little bit and hover over the middle of the circle and click there. It'll snap to the middle of the circle, and then just straight up to the top of our cylinder there, like that. And then I'm gonna move it over here to the right, like that. You can see there's a measurement now, sort of 0.105 meters. And I'm gonna do the same to the bottom. So again, Control equals will start that measurement, and then you start it at the center of that circle, snap it to the bottom of the cylinder, and just sort of drag it over and click again. You see that's 0.104 and 0.105. So if I grab all 3 of these guys and move it up 0.0005, it's pretty much centered it already, but we'll just go ahead and on Z, whoops, 0.0005, that should center it, okay. And then our little measurements go away there. Anyway, so those 3 circles are measured, are centered now. And I'm just going to go into perspective mode here, and G to move it out a little bit. So I'm going to cut into our cylinder with these curves now. So let's just select one to begin with, and then select our cylinder and press C for cut. You can see how it's going to work. It's just slicing right through there. But I can actually add more cutters just by holding Shift with this select cutters in purple down here. I can just keep adding these guys like that. So all 3 of these guys are chopping into our power cell now, and then hit OK. And you'll see now we've got a bunch of different, let's just delete these circles. Now we've got 4 different solids. If I hide the top one here, I've got these 3 solids that are sort of drilled out of there with our circles. So I'm just going to create some panel cuts, I'm just going to look down the y-axis here, press 2 for my edge selection. Lasso, select these edges. Now here I'm selecting edges of both, you can see over here, they're all 4 of these solid bodies are selected. So I'm getting the edges of both our main power cell and each of these 3 cylinders. And then if I go in here and do a chamfer, or actually going to do a fillet, I'm just going to create a little bit of a nice looking edge between all these guys. Now there's still 4 bodies, okay, but they're perfectly touching. So I can actually grab all 4 of these guys, press Q, and then press Q again for union, and then hit OK. And I just put them all back into one solid body here. Because we're creating a kit bash part, we really just want everything into one body here. Now here's a note, let me just undo this. If I were to say take this bottom one here, this holding Shift H to hide everything else, this guy right here, and pressing R to, S to scale, if I were to scale it in a little bit so it's not touching the sides now, it's not actually touching, the surfaces aren't touching. I've scaled it in a little bit. If I, whoops, let me just do that one more time. Scale it in. If I try, I can't actually combine these now. If I grab this one, this one, this one, and this one and do a Q for Boolean operation, and then Q again for union, hit OK, it's gonna put all of these except this last one into one body. So this guy is still a separate body, and that's because for bodies to be combined into a solid, remember they have to be a watertight solid. You can't have pieces that have any sort of space in between them like this. So I need to make sure that I don't change any of the scales or anything else, and there's like sort of touching going on there. Just a note: if you're creating like a solid, it actually has to be solid. You can't have separate pieces and just combine the mesh like you would in a Modo with like a polygon, a bunch of polygons, and with separate polygon islands. Here, for it to be a solid, it actually has to be solid. So again, just double tap Q once for the Boolean tool. Again for union, right down here, hit OK, and we've got our solid. So, all right, we've got some kind of cool looking. Let me just hide the grid. You can actually right click on this here to get some other materials. We'll just turn this to white and then toggle the X-ray off. And it's kind of, you've got some panel lines. You can actually right click on this and turn off show edges. And you can kind of see what we're dealing with here. We got some sort of panel line looking things there with the circles. We've got this top part going on. We'll do a little more details up there. Bottom part looks like a battery. That's fine. Let's just do maybe some more panel line details on this side, and then we'll be done. So with the detailing there. So we'll just look at it from the X, and I'm going to create. I'll just do a corner rectangle, maybe like this. And enter, and then I'm just gonna we'll do, let's see, let's turn our edges back on here and turn X-ray back on. Let's I think that's actually fine. we'll just move forward and kind of wrap this up here. This is going on a little bit longer than I thought it would. So again, I'm just going to cut. So I'm just going to press C and select my solid there. I'm going to cut, hit OK. And now I've got a couple of different solids, right? And I'm going to delete my curves. I'm going to select, looking on the X axis here, I'm going to go press 2 for my edges. I'm going to lasso select all my edges here. And again, I'm just going to do a little bit of a fillet there like that. And then enter, and then I'm going to Q again, OK, and we're back to one solid. And we just have some panel lines there, right? So let's do one more thing. Let's sort of see if we can replicate another object along this rim here. So I'm just going to turn my grid back on. I'm going to create another item over on the side here. So let's just let's take a sphere tool and just drag out like a little small sphere like this. Hit OK. And then let's look at it from the side. We'll do the same thing. We'll just sort of chop it up a little bit. Let's do a straight line at the bottom. Enter, C for cut, select our body, hit OK. Now we've chopped off the bottom. Press 4 to select the bottom body, delete that, 2 for the curve. Press G for move, we'll move it up here. Enter to confirm, C for cut again. We're going to chop off the top, OK. And just delete the top. Press 2, select the curve, delete the curve. And what should we do with this? Let's just 3 for the face, O for offset, which should be inset. Inset a little bit, enter, select that face, move it down a little bit, and enter. And then let's just maybe draw a little sphere on top of that. So let's get our sphere again. It'll just snap to the center just like that. We'll just draw out a little sphere. And again, you can see I'm doing a Boolean difference operation. I can press Q for an add. I can do, or just create a new body. I think I kind of like the difference. So let's just create a little divot like that, enter. And then let's do select that outer edge and do a fillet like that maybe, and this inner edge, and actually select this inner face and let's push it in a little bit like this using offset face. And then select 2 and select that top edge, and let's do a chamfer like this, kind of like that. So, that's our shape, right? Now we're going to sort of tack it on up here. And we can do that with this duplicate command down here. So I'm going to go to my bodies, and I'm going to select place solid or curve. And I'm going to select this, I'm sorry, we have to select our body first, and then we're going to place it, which is this one right here. Okay, and then I'm going to look at the bottom, and I'm defining the point that we're going to sort of think of this as the Velcro. I'm assigning the bottom sort of a Velcro sticker on the bottom. That's what's going to stick to whatever I touch. And then I'm going to go over to my, and then let's pick a spot here, sort of like this, F to flip. And then you can see F is flip right over here, right? All your keyboard shortcuts for this tool are right over here. So I think F is flip. Yeah, F, so you can flip it. We can scale it, so we can do S is probably scale. Yep, S. We can do scale. We can scale it down a little bit, something like this. And we could maybe move it in just a little bit like that, so it intersects. Hit enter. Okay, now let's delete this our little doodad over here. We'll just press delete, and then we've got our little body up here. So I'm still in body selection mode. I've got this body selected. I'm going to click on Radial Array and just click on this little center circle there. And then you can shift mouse wheel. I have a tablet, so I'll shift and spin my little dial here. Get something like this, like that. Looks sort of battery-ish. And hit enter. Now we've got all these different solids here, but they do intersect with our big one. So I should be able to grab this one and do our double tap Q Boolean. Although sometimes with a lot of them, you have to do a few at a time. Plasticity doesn't necessarily like doing a ton of them at once. We can give it a try. Q for union. Okay. Yeah, I did it. No problem. I've done it sometimes. I've done a whole bunch of these. It doesn't like it when you have, you're trying to Boolean 20 things at once. So you just Boolean like 3 or 4 at a time, and then grab 3 or 4 more and double tap Q and Boolean those until you get them all done. But yeah, we're about done here. I don't really like this center thing here, but I don't know. It's okay. This seems weird to me. Maybe I'll grab this and just push it down a little bit. Enter. Do O for offset. And offset it just a little bit. And then maybe push this in just a little bit like that. Select this edge here and chamfer it a little. Wow, I really didn't do anything for that phallic look, did I? Okay, we'll just move on. Okay, one thing I want to do really quick before we export is press 2. Let's grab this curve up here, or edge up there. Let's grab the one at the bottom. And I'm going to use the pipe tool, which is somewhere down here. There it is. You also just press P for pipe. And you can see it immediately just does a Boolean subtract operation, which actually is kind of... Actually, let's undo this. Let's Control Z. Let's grab the top here, and let's do P for pipe. And we've got a Boolean subtract operation. We can also press Q for union if we want a ring, but I like that subtract. And then we can just... you can drag the tool handles up here, or you could drag the section size here, just to make it bigger or smaller. So something 9.015 maybe, something like that. Nice little crevice there. Okay. And then at the bottom, press 2. Let's grab this curve down here. P for pipe, and this time we're going to press Q for union. And we can just again, you can I can't remember. I think the circle's the section size. It's this little handle right here. So you can just kind of go like this. Now we can do a new body if we want to create like a torus, a ring, but we want this all to be one piece for Kit Bash. And so let's just get the size we want and then hit OK. So now I've got sort of a ring at the bottom and an indent at the top. And then I think that looks good. So let's export this guy as an STP and an OBJ, bring it into Modo. So we're just going to do export as STP. We'll just call this power cell STP. It'll export that, and then we can use the power translators kit in Modo to import it. It'd be great if we had a native STP importer in Modo. We don't yet, but I'm hopeful we could get one. The power translators kit is awesome, but it's kind of expensive. But we can do an OBJ too. So let's do export. Let's do OBJ. And we'll just power cell OBJ save. I already had one there, so I'll just save over it. And you can see we've got our tessellation showing here. So we can do tries like this, and we can adjust the density. So lower density, fewer tries. We can look at quads, which will have triangulated n-gons, but quads where it feels like it can have them. Or we'll do n-gons, which has no tries, like all n-gons are just n-gons. And then anywhere you can do quads, it'll do quads. This looks pretty good. So let's just do that, say OK. And so that'll save it out as an OBJ. And let's bring up Modo. So let's bring in the STP file first. So we just hide the time here. So file import, and again, you need the CAD importers, the power translators CAD importer plugin for this. It's fantastic, but it's expensive. So we're trying to convince somebody in the community to build a SDP loader for Modo, because I think it gives you a lot of options. So I can do things on import here where I can just say OK, and then I can adjust my tessellation settings on import. I can also define the up axis. So remember, in Plasticity, the up axis is Z, so let's hit that, so it'll switch it to Y when it goes to Modo, and we can do different settings here for mesh quality. We'll do fine. So it'll be pretty highly tessellated. And also you can bring in duplicates as replicators and things like that. That's more for something like SolidWorks. Plasticity at this point doesn't have instancing, so it's really irrelevant for that. But we'll hit OK and bring it in. And there it is. Looks pretty sweet. Okay, so I'm just going to select this guy and move it over. If I turn on wireframe, you can see this is the fine setting, so it's pretty heavy wireframe. In fact, when I just up that opacity a little bit so you can see it better. So there it is, so it looks good. Also comes in with a vertex normal map. So if I select my guy here and go to vertex maps, this normal map will define the shading, smoothing angles. So that's useful. And then let's import our OBJ and see how that looks. PowerCell OBJ. Okay. Now remember, this guy we need to actually rotate it. So let's rotate this guy, -90. Yeah, it looks pretty good too. Far fewer polygons. Of course, we could have imported this at a lower res, but those n-gons look pretty good. Both look pretty good. So there it is. That's your first introduction to Plasticity. I hope that was useful. And then bringing them into Modo. And then let's sort of band together as a community. Put the invite to the Pixel Fondue Discord in the description, as well as the download link for the Plasticity trial, which I think lets you export and save items. Maybe not, but anyway, check it out. And then join us on the Discord, and we'll get this thing going.
Yum, yum!